It's a new year and a new chance for you to make a fresh start with your compliance. We're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
We're going to have a quick word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. What is the best single-author handbook for a best practices compliance program? I would humbly submit to you that it is the Compliance Handbook, 5th edition, by myself, Tom Fox. It's published by LexisNexis, and it's designed to give you information on how to improve your compliance program literally across an entire year. Each entry has 3 key takeaways of things you can do at little or no cost for your compliance program. I'm going to link to it in the show notes, so check out the Compliance Handbook, 5th edition. Day 16, Effective and Tailored Compliance Training. One of the key goals of any compliance program is to train employees in awareness and understanding of the FCPA, your specific company compliance program, and to foster and create a culture of compliance. While it seems axiomatic that compliance training is a mainstay of any best practices compliance program, the conversation around training has evolved over the years. The FCPA Resource Guide 2nd edition started the conversation with the following, quote, "Compliance programs cannot work unless effectively communicated throughout a company. Accordingly, the DOJ and SEC will evaluate whether a company has taken steps to ensure that relevant policies and procedures have been communicated throughout the organization, including periodic training and certification of all directors, officers, relevant employees, and, where appropriate, agents and business partners." Beginning in the fall of 2016 through the announcement of the FCPA Enforcement Pilot Program, the DOJ began to talk about whether you have determined the effectiveness of your training. The conversation continued with the 2017 evaluation, where it asked, how has the company measured the effectiveness of training? The point has bedeviled many compliance professionals, yet is now a key metric in the government for evaluating compliance training. It further evolved in the 2023 ECCP with the mandate training must be, quote, truly effective, end quote. Finally, the training must be presented in a language in which the employees understand, which means in a local language if the training is outside the U.S. or other non-English speaking countries. Also raised beginning in the 2017 evaluation was the focus of your training, where the DOJ inquired into whether your training was tailored for the audience. This added 2 requirements. The first was to assess your employees for risk to determine the type of training you might need to deliver by risk ranking your employees. Obviously, the sales force would be the highest risk, but there may be others who are deserving of high-risk training as well. From the risk ranking, you are required to develop tailored training for the risk those employees will face. The P spelled this out in greater detail. It stated, quote, prosecutors should assess periodic training and certification for all directors, officers, relevant employees, and where appropriate, agents and business partners. Prosecutors should also assess whether the company has relayed information in a manner tailored to the audience size, sophistication, and subject matter expertise, end quote. I would suggest that you start at the beginning with an evaluation of your compliance training and move outward. This means starting with the attendance, which many companies tend to overlook. You should determine that all senior management and board members have attended compliance training. You should review the documentation and confirm attendance. Make your department or group leader accountable for the attendance of their direct reports, and so on down the chain. Evidence of training is important to create an audit trail for any internal or external assessment audit of your training program. Some of the other metrics you should consider in post-training evaluation include an increase in hotline use. Are there more calls into the compliance department requesting assistance or even asking questions about compliance? Is there a decrease in compliance violations or other acts of noncompliance? Consider using surveys to provide feedback on not simply compliance training, but to determine the effectiveness of a much wider variety of areas for your compliance program. These surveys provide critical information on the state of your compliance program and provide substantive feedback for further inclusion back looped into your compliance regime. Testing your program and using that information in a feedback loop is another key component of a best practices compliance programs. What are espresso shots of training to help facilitate effective training? Tina Rampino, Managing Director at K2 Integrity, suggests keeping your compliance segments concise, as shorter bite-sized learning is a trend in training programs. This means that instead of offering half-day and full-day sessions, break programs into shorter segments of 20 minutes or less, which are easier for the participants to absorb and schedule. Jessica Chachuga, a principal instruction designer at Diligent, suggested training effectiveness through microlearning and metrics, including the adoption of microlearning techniques for content delivery, the utilization of interruptive training methods for behavior disruption, and tailored targeting training for at-risk employees. The importance of determining the effectiveness of your compliance program has been enshrined by the DOJ. The update confirmed the DOJ wants to see evidence of effectiveness of your compliance training program. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, how and why have you tailored your compliance program and how you determine its effectiveness? Number 2, try a shot of espresso training. And number 3, present your training in local languages and utilize a variety of media. I hope you will join me tomorrow and day 17, where we talk about podcasting for compliance training and corporate culture. I know you'll enjoy tomorrow's episode. I hope you will join me for the rest of 31 days to a more effective compliance program, where we take a deep dive into your overall compliance program. Thank you for listening to this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. If you'd like more information on any of the topics of this month's series, 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, check out The Compliance Handbook 5th edition, available from LexisNexis. You can check it out at lexisnexis.com/Fox. I know you will find it useful and enjoy it. Thanks so much for listening.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.